Hi, I'm Lorraine from Craftyzal. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing the black ice technique, which if you've not seen it before, involves using clear embossing powder on top of a stamped image on foil card. I'm hoping that the video is picking this up. It just gives nice ice crystal effects over the top. So I've used a variety of visible image stamps. This one's Erica's Maple, which I think works really well. I did some underwater scenes with it as well, which I think is a particularly good technique for that. This is Dare to Swim. This is Create Your Calm. And then lastly, I know some people don't like to use StazOn ink with their photopolymer stamps. It's not anything that I've had a problem with in the past, but if that's not for you, then archival ink work just as well. That's what I did this one with, Ranger Black Archival. Okay, let's get on with the project. Okay, I'm starting with visible image, Erica's Maple stamp. I've got a StazOn ink and a Versamark ink pad, and then I've got three foil panels, which are Craft Perfect, made by Tonic Studios. I've got Ruby Gold and Inca Gold, and I can't remember what the other one's called. So I've started by putting a little bit of temporary adhesive on the back so that it sticks to my bit of scrap paper. I could have skipped this step and just held the end of it because I cut the panels a little bit longer so I could use the end as a handle. I think originally though I'd planned to use it to put my sentiment on, but I changed my mind. So I'm trying out my StazOn pad on the scrap paper just to see how much pressure I need to apply, just to get a streaky look. My ink pad's quite dry. Probably could do with re-inking a little bit, but you don't want too much ink on. At least this way you can go over it again, applying a little bit more pressure to get more streaks on there. So I'm trying to get them straightish, but I'm not being too precious about it. So when I'm sticking my panels down, I just push the panel down with a cloth. Try not to get too much oil off my hands on the gold. On the foil. So on this one I was a little bit more heavy-handed than I probably wanted to be, but the whole point of this technique is everything is very variable and every panel looks different. You can't get the same one twice, which is the nice thing about it. So once that is complete, then I go on to stamping my images. So on this one I'm using the big maple leaf to start with, and again I'm using StazOn ink for this. And stamping that in the sort of centre of my panel, as that's going to be the main focal image. And so because foil is non-porous, so it's quite easy to slip and move the stamp a tiny bit. So just something to be mindful of. I haven't got a way around it. Sometimes I stamp perfectly and other times I didn't. But fortunately the style of the project is that it doesn't really matter quite so much. As long as it's not got a massive great big smear, you can just get away with it. So I'm doing that on all three of my panels, just giving it a good press because I can't, it's obviously not in the stamp positioner, so once I lift it off, that's it, it's done. But I was quite pleased with the impressions that I got on them. And then this Inca Gold, which is a sort of holographic one, so apologise because the lighting on the video makes it very distracting. So I'm just using the other leaves and the little sentiments from the set to finish stamping off my panels, rotating the leaves around so that they don't look the same from every angle, and changing the orientation of the wording as well. And then I set them aside to dry. I'm just testing here that there's no ink coming off. I was fairly certain it was dry and I had given it a quick blast with the heat gun. So the next step is to use the Versamark ink pad and literally just the weight of the pad drag it across the surface. There are different variations on how people like their finished card for the black ice technique to look. I like mine to be a little bit streaky, so that it looks like rows of ice crystals. Some people like to emboss it so it's completely covered, and even do like 2 or 3 layers, so it's completely shiny flat then, I would assume, but it's up to you. You can make it your own way, put your own mark on it. So what I've got here is actually not quite enough embossing powder on there. Fortunately, with this technique, you can just heat it up so the powder sets, and then go again with the ink pad over the top. I wait for the heat tool to warm up quite a lot, because I need it to be really hot so that it's the minimum amount of time against the foil, and I also keep it moving a lot more than I would do if I was just heat embossing on card. Try not to get any hot spots on the foil, because if you try it out in a little bit of foil, you can see how it does change colour if it gets overheated. And I'm going to go back in with my ink pad again and give it another go and see, apply a little bit more pressure this time. You've got no idea how much ink's on there until you put the embossing powder on. So now it transpires that there's quite a lot. It's like feast or famine. However, there's also a way around this. So I've flicked off as much as I can, and now I've got my I don't know what the technical term for this is. One of the art groups I'm in calls it a manky brush, so that's what I like to call it as. So yeah, I use my manky brush to just take off just little bits here and there, just so that it's not too uniform, and then heat set this. As you can see, I'm moving the heat gun around quite a lot, not keeping it in one place, trying to rotate it around, make sure I've got every single bit. Sometimes you can't see the bits you've missed, and you've just got to change the angle of it and see if you catch it in the light, and make sure we've got all the bits zapped. And so there's the finished panel. So now I move on and repeat the exact process on the other gold panel and on the red one. So the red one, I don't know if you can see on this, but I've got quite a thick stripe where I've got no embossing powder whatsoever. So after I'd heat set this, I realised you could still see it. It was a little bit too uniform. So after I'd heat set this powder, I just went back in with my Versamark pad and just filled in that gap and added a bit more powder to it. So there are my 3 finished panels. You can just see the ice crystal effect on it. And then here's 2 others that I'd made earlier using some blue foil panels to make underwater scenes. And then here's the comparison between the red one, which is made with StazOn, and the green one that is made with archival ink. As you can see, there's very little difference between them. So now for the sentiments. So I didn't want to cover over the black iced panels. It seems like a shame when you've gone to all that bother to make that. So I thought I'd use vellum for the sentiment, so then you can see the foil through it. So I added some gold, mirror gold embossing powder onto this and heat set that. Again with and heating on vellum, I make sure the gun's good and hot before I bring it near the vellum. I stop it warping quite so much. And then I thought it would look better with a slightly organic look. So rather than just trimming it with my trimmer, I thought I'd rip it, give it a rustic edge. And I'm really pleased actually with how these turned out. I always like to, when I'm tearing these things, tear towards me. And next is the problem of how to attach vellum. Because obviously it's see-through, which is why you're using it. Now here I am auditioning where to put it. So I decided against the middle because that large leaf is the focal image. Then I realised that the width of the vellum that I had isn't wide enough to put it right in the middle. So then I just moved it across the side to make it deliberately offset from the centre so that it doesn't look like it's wonky, that it's supposed to be offset. That's the trick when you do an offset. So once I've positioned it, I turn it over, fold the edges over, and then simply use some double-sided tape just to stick those edge bits down, so then it's secured invisibly. I do love this red tape. It's so strong and sticky. Just trying to get the staticky release paper off your fingers is the trickiest bit. Once that's all done, then I use some wet glue. I like Tombow Mono for this job because it's really strong, and I apply quite a lot of it to the back of that panel because it's got quite warped with being heat embossed, and so it's quite bent out of shape. So hopefully the black panel is going to pull it back into shape, but it needs a lot of glue to hold it in place. And then lastly, I'm going to mount this onto a 5 3/4 inch square card blank. These are sold as 6-inch card blanks, but they're not 6 inch, they're 5 3/4. And I found that they're not quite 5 3/4 square. They're 5 3/4 top to bottom, but not side to side. So I like to just trim that tiny bit off the edge to make it into a 5 3/4 square card. So that's going to fit nicely on there, so I'll just glue that in place. I like to use a bit of wet glue on this because it allows you to just wiggle a little bit until you've got it perfectly lined up. Make sure it's square, and there we go, there's the first card finished, and I just repeated that process for the rest of the cards. So here's the finished gold card, and I had fun making all of these, and I hope you've had fun watching. If you do, please like and subscribe, and I'll hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.